So we're moving right ahead. Today we're going to be in lesson 1.10, and 1.10 is still dealing with quadratic equations, but this time these quadratic equations are written in factored form. Your learning objective for today: students will write quadratic equations in factored form when our a value is equal to 1. Okay, so like with every lesson, we're going to start with a warm-up. So let's see what you remember so far. So if I look below, and yesterday we've already talked about some factor form and what that looks like. So we already know that this given equation here in red is written in factored form, where x plus 6 is one factor and x minus 3 is another factor. So the first question on your warm-up, just to see what you remember from the previous day, it says the equation is written in blank form. And so if I look here, it is written in, of course, factored form. Question number 2, what are the x-intercepts? All right, yesterday we learned that if an equation is written in factored form, then we can very easily identify the x-intercepts. So if I look at this equation, I can very easily notice that my x-intercepts are -6 and 3. Basically, if I were to graph this, this is where this function, this quadratic function, would cross the x-axis. Remember, we said that these numbers inside our factors help us to determine where our x-intercepts are. The only difference is we take the opposite sign. So for an example, since this is a positive 6, this would be -6. Our x-intercept would be -6. Since this is a -3, our x-intercept would be +3. And last but not least, what is another name for x-intercepts? Well, yesterday we discussed it, and we said sometimes we might see them refer to x-intercepts as roots. Sometimes we might see them refer to x-intercepts as solutions, and sometimes we might see them refer to x-intercepts as zeros. But more importantly, whether they're using roots, solutions, or zeros, or x-intercepts, we know that they're talking about where the graph crosses the x-axis if we're looking at the graph. Okay, so let's move on. So quadratic forms that we have discussed already. So we've looked at quadratic equations that are written in standard form. And this is standard form. We know how to graph this standard form. We know how to get the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the x-intercepts, and the y-intercepts using Desmos. And then we talked about vertex form. We know that our h and k value represents our vertex. And from that, we can determine whether or not the graph is going to either shift up or down, or left and right. And we can also determine from the a value whether the graph is going to open up or whether the graph is going to open down, all from the vertex form. And we all can still graph the vertex form inside of Desmos as well. And so yesterday we looked at factor form, just a little bit of it. And so we saw that just with factor form, I can identify my x-intercepts without even graphing it. But if I was unsure whether I'm given an equation in any of these three forms here, I can always use Desmos to graph it and just to kind of check myself. All right, so today we're going to write equations in factored form. All right, so let's take a look at an example. Let's go ahead and jump on it. Don't waste no time. So our first equation that we're going to look at is this y equals x squared plus 5x plus 6. And off the bat, we can see that this equation is written in standard form. Well, I want to put this in factored form. Well, let's see what we can do. So to put this in factored form, the first thing that I will need to do is I want to just draw this x here. Okay, this x is going to be very important, and it's going to help us out a whole lot. Then what I would like to do is I'm going to, in this little box here, I'm going to take my a value and my c value, and I'm going to multiply them together, and I'm going to put that value here. Then I'm going to take that number, okay, I'm going to take a number, and they need to add together the number that I put here or in between here. They need to add together because we're going to take factors of A and C and we're going to add them together to get our B term. So our B term is going to go here. Now let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so first I said we're going to multiply A and C together. So in this equation, of course our A is 1, okay, because your A is always attached to the x squared term. So A is 1, and our C is 6. So that means 1 times 6 would just give us 6. So when I multiply A and C together, I just got 6. So I would put the 6 here. Now my B term, or my B value, let me say B value, not term. So my B value would be just a positive 5. So I'm just going to place that here. Now what I have to do here on either of these ends is I have to come up with factors of this that when I add them together, I get 5, but when I multiply them, of course, I get 6. And it has to work that way in order for them to be factors. Well, how are we going to do that, or how are we going to come up with our factors? All right, so let me show you using a calculator, okay? So here I have my TI-84 calculator pulled up, and you guys have one of these calculators as well. So if you guys will go ahead and just pause the video or take the time to pull your calculator up so that we can perform and do these steps together. Okay, so first of all, I have this equation right here that I'm trying to factor. And so you know where this 6 came from, and you know where this 5 came from as well. All right, so now I have to basically find factors of this 6, okay? That's going to add together, the two factors have to add together to give me 5. And so the way in which we're going to do that, because the 6 is very easy, but these numbers get very complicated and difficult. All right, so what we're going to do in our calculator, everybody should have their calculators on by now. You're going to click y equals, okay, at the top. And we're going to plug in whatever number is up here when we multiply A and C together. So we see that that is 6. So I'm going to put 6, and I'm going to divide it, and then I'm going to put just the variable x. I always do this. So whatever number is here, I put that number there, and I divide it by x always. Once I do that, then I want to hit my second button, and then I want to hit graph, because it's going to take us to this table. And so here you have a table of values. Now, this table of values are important because these are all our factors. So if I look, this is basically saying if I multiply 1 times 6, it's going to give me 6. If I multiply 2 times 3, it's going to give me 6. If I multiply 3 times 2, it's going to give me 6. Okay, now when we're looking for factors, because we're factoring, we want to ignore these decimal numbers. We don't want to look at these decimal numbers at all. But basically, I have to find a pair of these factors that is going to work, right? That is going to work that when I add them together, instead of this time multiplying, but I need to add them together and they have to give me 5. Well, how are we going to do that to where it works for us all the time? So what we're going to do to make it a little simpler for us, we're going to let the calculator do the work for us. So you could add them by hand if you want to, but I'm going to show you how to use your calculator as a tool and a resource to help you to deal with these numbers, especially when we get to like negative numbers and things like that. So I'm going to click y equals. I'm going to tab down here. And so in my calculator, let me just go back to this table real quick. You see how this is x and this is y1? Basically, what I want to do with these, everything in these columns is I want to add them together. But I want the calculator to do that for us. So I'm about to show you guys how to perform that. So to make that happen, I'm going to go back to y equals. and I'm going to tab into y2. And in y2, I'm going to put x plus, and then the calculator in the table you saw where it was y1. But I have to find y1. So if I hit vars and I tab over to y-vars, and I'm going to click 1 because I want to go to where it says function, there I see my little symbol for my y1. So I'm going to select enter. And so in this second equation, you got where you're adding your x column plus your y1 column together. So now with both of these two in there, I'm going to click second and table. And so automatically it's adding them together. So the only thing that I'm doing here is I'm going through trying to find which column is giving me this. And so I see that, oh, wow, okay. I see that 5 is here and 5 is here. Well, that's the exact number that I wanted here. So I see that the factors of 2 and 3 will work, even if this like inverted. So you see 2 and 3 here and 2 and 3 here. Well, it doesn't matter the order, okay? Just as long as it gives us 5 when it's added together. So I found my two factors, and so my two factors would be 3 and 2. So I go over here, and I'm going to write those two factors here. And that actually should be 3 and 2. So okay, so I had a brain fart, so I had to go back and fix it. Alright, so now you can see that we have our two factors. That's going to complete this little X box for us. So since I have my two factors now, so now I can go ahead and write my factors for this quadratic equation here. So my two factors would be messed up again, because that should actually be x plus 2 and x plus 3. Okay, hopefully I had enough brain farts by now. Thank you guys for finding those errors. But actually, you should see that your factors are going to be the x plus 2, which the 2 comes from here, the factors that we were able to find in the calculator, and also x plus 3, and that 3 comes from here because it's a positive 3 and it's a positive 2. Now, given this information here, because basically what I did was I took my equation that's written in standard form and I now rewrote it in factored form. So since it's now factored, I can determine just from looking at the equation what the x-intercepts are. And if you said that the x-intercepts was not -1 and -5, but -2 and -3, so let me fix. Okay, so if you said that the x-intercepts were at -2 and -3, then you were absolutely correct. Okay, so let's look at another example, and maybe I'll be flawless this time. So our next example that we're going to look at is y equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and make our x box where we can set it up, and we'll have that we have to multiply the a times the c and also the b. So let's go ahead and set that box up. All right. So I have to put my a value times my c value here, and I'm going to add these two factors together when we find them, and that they have to add together to give me my b term. So first of all, when I multiply a times c here, I should get a positive 8 because a is 1 and c is 8. Okay, I multiply them together, and they have to add together to give me a positive 6 because our b is 6. Okay, so now I have to look for factors of this time 8. So to look for factors of 8, I go to y equals, and the only difference that I'm going to do, because you see how I got this equation in here right now? I don't have to change it. So I'm going to put 8 divided by x, and then I'm going to go to second, and I'm going to go to graph. Okay, and so now these factors are my factors of 8. Okay, but I need to look for these factors of 8 that what's going to give me when they add to 6 in this calculator here. All right, so where is 6? Wow, okay, so I found it already. I found a positive 6, and I see that one value, one factor has to be 4, and the other factor has to be 2. So that means a 4 is going to go here, and a 2 is going to go here. So now, guess what? I can stop and I can go ahead and write this equation in factor form because I found my two factors that's going to help me to factor this quadratic equation. So my factored form for this equation should look like y equals x plus 2 times x plus 4. And so my x-intercepts would clearly be -2 and -4. Okay, remember, you take the opposite sign. All right, let's look at another example here. All right, this time let's look at y equals x squared plus 9x plus 20. All right, so the first thing we have to do, let's go ahead and set our box up. We have our A, C, we're going to add that and get our B. So now we have to fill in the missing terms here, or the missing values that go here. So this time I'm multiplying 1 and 20. So A times C, or 1 times 20, is going to give me 20. And my B value is just 9. So I'm going to place a 9 here. All right, now I have to find factors this time of 20. All right, so I'm going to go back through the calculator steps. And this time I'm going to clear this out because I want to make sure that you guys remember how to do all of this. So I'm going to put, of course, this number, take 20, and I'm going to divide, okay, like I always do to find my factors of 20. And then I'm going to come over here. Well, actually, let's look at the table first. And so all these factors that are here are factors of 20. But my red column is missing, and that red column basically did all the work for me. So how do I get that red column back? It's very easy. So you see how this is X and this is Y? Basically, I want a statement saying that I'm adding those two columns together. So it's giving me my third column. So over here, I'm going to go back to Y equals. And this time I'm going to put X plus, we got to find Y1. So we can go vars, and we're going to go Y vars, and then we're going to hit 1 for function. And then you should see Y1. We're going to click Y1 there, and we're going to go second, back to graph. And guess what? It added these factors together for us. So now it's added them together for us. And this is what we're looking for. So we're wanting them to add together to give us a positive 9. So I'm looking through, trying to find a 9, and I found it. So I see that my two factors should be 4 and 5. Okay, so that means a 5 or 4 can go here. And we have our two factors. The order doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I put the 5 over here or the 4 over here. It doesn't matter, just as long as you have your factors, because multiplication is invertible, right? It doesn't matter the order. The order doesn't matter. All right, so when I write my equation, because 4 and 5 are my factors, my equation is going to be x plus 4, because 4 is a positive 4, and x plus 5, because 5 is a positive 5. Now, looking at this equation written in factored form, I can very easily see that my x-intercepts are -4 and -5. Okay? Is it getting easier? All right, let's try another example here. Okay, so this time, whoa, we got some negatives in here. Wow, let's see what's going to happen. Okay, so we have negatives. It doesn't change anything because we just keep repeating this same thing over and over again. We're going to draw our box, create our box here, and we know that we got to put the A times the C in the top, and then we're going to add those terms together for our B, so let's fill it in. So A is 1, C is -24 because there is a negative in front of it. So 1 times -4 is going to give us -24. And of course, our B term is just -5. So I'm going to place a -5 here. So I'm looking for factors of -24 that when I add them together, they're going to give me a -5. Okay, so first, I have to find my factors of this negative 24. So I'm going to go back, and since I'm looking for factors of negative 24, I'm going to put negative 24 divided by x, like I always do. And I go second table, and here are all my factors here. Okay, but I want them to be added together for me. So I'm going to go back to y equals. I'm going to tab down to y2, and I'm going to click x plus. I'm going to go to vars because I want to go to y1. I want to select that y1 option so that my calculator automatically does it for me. So now I have that in here. I hit second, and then I hit graph again to get me to my table. Now I have this third column where they're adding them together for me, and clearly, quite naturally, I'm looking for negative 5. So now this might be a little hunt. So I see, am I going to tab up, going to tab down? Oh, I see it. Negative 5 is right here. So it tells me that my two factors would be negative 8 and positive 3. So over here, one of my factors is negative 8, and the other factor is positive 3. So now, since I have my factors, I can go ahead and write this equation in factored form. So in factored form, I have y equals x plus 3 because it's a positive 3, and x minus 8 because this is a negative 8. And so my x-intercepts would be negative 3 and positive 8. Remember, when we're pulling the x-intercepts from the factored form, they're always the opposite. Okay, one more example. All right, so we have x squared minus 12x plus 27. So let's go ahead and continue to do like we've been doing with the rest of the problems. We're going to start with that x, and we want to put everything in place. So I'm multiplying my a times my c, which is 1 times 27, which is going to give me 27 here. And my b term, or my b value, is negative 12, so negative 12 goes here. So clearly, I have to find factors of, let me clear this out. I have to find factors of 27. So I'm going to put 27 divided by x. Okay, and then if I want to just do this all at one time, I'm going to go x plus vars, because I need to find my y1. Select my y1. Now they're both in at the same time. I can hit second and graph, so it gives me the tables. Automatically, you see that they're being added together. So what number am I looking for over here in this red column? That's right, I'm looking for a negative 12. So over here, let me tab over, okay, because I need to do some strolling. See if I can find a negative 12. Oh, that looks like it's getting higher. So now I'm going to try to go the other way. Okay, and that's okay. You guys can do that. You can go the opposite way. Kind of slow. I guess I was hitting the button too fast, so it's trying to catch up with itself. I'm just waiting for it to catch up with itself. Alright, looks like it's caught up with itself. Trying to show you that you can go up some more. Let's see. Okay, so I guess you have to stroll up on the x, but we're going to be focusing on this column because we're focusing on trying to find a negative 12. So I'm going to stroll up, stroll up, stroll, 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 stroll. Alright, so yeah, so look, I went the opposite way and I was able to find a negative 12. So that means that my two factors would be negative 9 and also negative 3. So over here, I'm going to put negative 9 as one factor and negative 3 as my other factor. So therefore, if I write this equation in factor form, it would be y equals x minus 3 times x minus 9 would be my two factors. And my x-intercepts would be positive 3 and a positive 9. Because remember, we take the opposite sign. All right, so let's do a lesson recap. So today we were able to take a quadratic equation that was written in standard form initially, and we were able to write that equation in factored form. All right, so it says given the quadratic equation written in standard form, that's what we did, we can rewrite in factored form, where x minus a and x minus c are factors because they are being multiplied together. Okay, so at the end of the lesson, you guys have some examples that I want you guys to try. Please refer back to the video or refer back to your notes for a little bit of help and guidance, and we will all come back together tomorrow.